EpiXR games. Just how bad are they? EpiXR Games is a game company based in Berlin, Germany, and was registered as an entity according to the official German business registration database, the Unternehmensregister. I probably butchered that name, on May 15th, 2020. EpiXR Games has one listed employee, the CEO himself, Tim Bachmann, who is aged 35 and was born October 3rd, 1990. He is single, and his registered business address is public information on not only the German business registration database, but is also public information on every single one of his games' Xbox store pages on both Xbox and the Xbox.com website itself. It even has his phone number. This is the information that is shown, and according to Google Maps, this is where EpiXR Games is situated. Their registered business address is in an apartment above a Berlin hairdresser's. Yep. Since the date of registration, since that date they have published 96 games onto the Xbox platform, 82 of them having been developed by EpiXR Games themselves. 2 games not developed by EpiXR Games were Ailment and Endurance Space Action, which were developed by Ivan Panasenko for console release. The remaining 12 games were developed by Euphoria Games for mobile phones and tablets, which EpiXR Games then ported to consoles. We'll come back to them later. For now, we will be talking about the 82 games that EpiXR Games has developed today. Here you see a list of every single game that EpiXR Games has officially developed and published on the Xbox platform since their conception. You may notice that 2 of the games, Tanky Tanks and Airy Little Bird Adventure, are actually games that were released before they were officially a company. Bit weird, that. But here are all the games and all of the prices that EpiXR Games have released as games that they have personally developed. There is a lot of them, as you can see. 82 of them, in fact. If we were to go by series, EpiXR Games' most frequent series releases are the Airy Bird Game series. To date, 27 of them have been released on the Xbox platform. You would think that with 27 games of a single series, things would get stale quickly, wouldn't you? You would be correct, because most of these Airy games have the same 3 or 4 tracks of music, many of the same levels that have been in each other before. And with low effort copy and pasted games, you have the same issues over and over and over again. Because there is a spelling error in the control settings that's been there for 6 years. Here you can see their first game, Airy Little Bird Adventure, released 20th of December 2019. It says sensibility under the sensitivity settings. And then you see it, the exact same thing, 6th of August 2020, in Broken Memories. 2 months later, Sky Castle, 8th of October 2020. 4 months later, 25th of February 2021, A Journey Beyond Time. 3 more months later, actually 15 months later, which was their next Airy game that I have here. Still sensibility. A month later, Airy Vikings. A couple more months later, Last Day of Earth. 5 more months later, Airy Carmine 3, sensibility once again. The Lost Hero, 9th of June 2023. 18th of August 2023, Flow of Time. 20th of December 2023, Carmine 4. Sensibility once again. 23rd of February 2024, Airy Stone Age, Sensibility. And then literally last month, Airy Winter Wonderland, Sensibility. 6 years, and he hasn't been asked to fix a fucking typo. This shows not only an extraordinarily massive lack of care, but a complete I don't give a fuck attitude to not only the quality and presentation of his games, but a complete lack of will to make any sort of adjustment until he is literally forced to. I would like to make a full disclosure at this point. When Tim started to release games on the Xbox platform, I was partnered with him. I enjoyed his games, and I got a single review code for them. This lasted for the first 3 games that he created. You may have noticed earlier that his first 3 games, Tanky Tanks, Airy Little Bird Adventure, and Retro Tanks, were his first games. I pointed out, the Tanky Tank was released on 8th of November 2019. We'll ignore Airy for now because that's not important to the point that I'm about to make. Retro Tanks, which was released 10th of April 2020, so 6 months and 2 days later than Tanky Tank, if my maths is correct. I pointed out a glaringly, blatantly obvious and player abusing issue with Retro Tanks. Would you like to know what it is? Retro Tanks is exactly the same game as Tanky Tanks, which was released 6 months earlier. Let me explain. Tanky Tanks main screen, Retro Tanks main screen. Tanky Tanks level 1, Retro Tanks level 1, released 6 months later. Tanky Tanks, Retro Tanks. Tanky Tanks, Retro Tanks. Tanky Tanks, Retro Tanks. I'm sure you see the problem. Retro Tanks was exactly the same game as Tanky Tanks, except Retro Tanks had a quite frankly awful looking filter over the top of it to make it look god awful, in a similar vein to how so many games nowadays use the VHS filter to make found footage games look awful. Whilst I've only screenshotted the first level for each of these 2 games, I can assure you that all 50 levels are identical, as is the title screen. I pointed this out to him and basically said back when this happened in 2020 that this was game cloning and was absolutely not right. Guess what happened? I never got a code from him again and got blacklisted for him. Funny that. I say that he really shouldn't do something that is so obviously a cheap, low effort money grab and taking his customers for granted, and I get blacklisted. To be honest, it wasn't expected, and certainly isn't if we look at his behaviours and actions since then. This is not the actions of a young business owner. He was 30 years old at the time. Whilst I do not have the email to prove it, as it has been lost to the ether, I was told, in no uncertain terms, quote, "I'm not breaking any rules, and Microsoft aren't going to do anything," end quote. Many new people to Tim's games may not remember, but in January or February 2023, I discovered something about Tim's games which categorically proved that he doesn't play his own games or test them in any way, shape, or form. When messing around with a USB keyboard connected to my Xbox Series X, I discovered that Tim had put a level skip code into every single one of his games. I discovered this. I was the first person to find this out. What you had to do was basically hold, or in some cases rapidly press, the letters G and O on your USB keyboard whilst you were in a level on the game. This would immediately unlock the level related achievement for the level that you were on, and allow you to skip to the next level, which meant that the majority of his games, about 95% at this point in time, could be completed in approximately 2 minutes. Obviously, I shared this discovery, and also obviously, this massively increased his game sales for these titles because of the level skip cheat discovery. At this time, Tim was the only developer who had been discovered to put level skips in his games, and thus the influx of cash from these titles raised eyes at Microsoft. In March 2023, they forced Tim to remove the level skip cheat codes from his games. Going back to the testing, there has been more than 20 occasions across his titles, 20 different titles, where Tim's laziness and unwillingness to even test his own games has been blatantly apparent. On over 20 of his games, there have been game-breaking bugs or progression blocking bugs that he had to fix because the game simply wasn't working. From collectibles being behind invisible walls, to achievements for completing levels that don't exist, to more famously, levels that would crash randomly very frequently on every single Xbox console. I and many other players had this issue on one of his games, where I personally streamed my attempts to complete a single level over 580 times before I could get through it without it crashing randomly. It was extremely obvious that all of Tim's testing boiled down to Step 1, use cheat code. Step 2, does achievement unlock? Step 3, yes? Job done. Sadly, on over 20 occasions, it was very obvious that he didn't even do this. At the current time of recording, 3 of Tim's developed games have unobtainable achievements that have never been patched or fixed. The first, deleted, Cyber Invasion, was released 19th of December 2023 and has 2 unobtainable achievements. The second, Dash and Roll, was released 7th of June 2024 and has 3 unobtainable achievements. The third, Paper Plane Arena Shamans, was released on 28th of February 2025 and has 1 unobtainable achievement. To say that Tim does not know that these achievements are unobtainable would be a lie, because not only I, but many other players have emailed him and contacted him on Twitter to tell him that these achievements are unobtainable. It's not even that these achievements are unique. They're pretty much identical to all of his titles that he's previously released, mostly just for completing levels. It's a simple binary, has this person completed this level, yes or no achievement, and yet Tim is so lazy and incompetent that he literally does not give a fuck to go and fix these titles, which, once again, shows a lack of care or even the willingness to put out a working game. Anyone who owns these titles should put in for refunds because, by law, they are not working as intended, and therefore they are a faulty product. You, as digital consumers, have a right to have a working product. If that product does not fully work as intended, there are laws in place which protect you as a consumer and entitle you to a full refund. Use your rights. Get your refunds. If the game does not work as intended, it doesn't matter what Microsoft's terms and conditions say. You are entitled to a full refund in the eyes of the law, and you can quote that to Microsoft support. To date, Tim has been very unimaginative with all of his titles. Across the 96 games that he has published, 53 have been in the vein of fly around, collect stuff. 4 have been recent releases, which are AI generated games with AI generated music and artwork, based in the game style of the simple 2048 game under the Battle Puzzle 2048 brand. AI art and assets isn't the only crime to game development he has done. Another of his relatively new series is him ripping off a game style of another game from PopCap named Zuma. He's named his version of it Zumba and has released 4 of these games so far. Which is stupid because Zumba is also a registered trademark and entity of the dancing/keep fit brand Zumba. So how he's using that game name as a game release, considering Zumba also has video game naming rights for the word Zumba, is a question that is currently unanswered. At this point, I would like to mention something that I feel is extremely dishonest that Tim is doing, coming from the games developed by Euphoria Games, which Tim has console publishing rights for. You may remember that at the start of this video, I mentioned that their games were originally horror games for mobile phones and tablets. Their games are Death Park 1 and 2, Horror Tale 1, 2 and 3, and Antarctica 88, and also Mist Evolution, which we'll come to shortly. These games, when released on console, looked absolutely awful, and now Tim is releasing so-called 4K remasters for the Xbox Series X and S consoles. There's just one major, blatantly obvious problem with this. Shall we take a look at the Death Park 1 so-called 4K remaster? This is a screenshot from the starting room of Death Park 1. This is a poster, a Pearl Jam poster, as you can read. This is on the original version of Death Park 1. As you can see, it is quite blurry. This is the 4K remaster. It is exactly the same image with no upscaling or absolutely anything. There is no 4K remaster here. The only thing that you will see at the top left and the top right is that there are slightly different lighting effects between the 4K version, which is this version, and the non-4K version, the original version. Shall we take a look at the textures of the rooms themselves? From the starting room, when we hide under the bed, this is the image that you will see of Death Park 2. Sorry, of Death Park 1, the original Death Park 1. And now let's look at the textures for the 4K version. As you can see, they are identical. There is absolutely no 4K textures here whatsoever. And it's like this for the entire games. None of these are 4K, which means that Tim is lying again. As you can see from those images, no texture or anything has been made into 4K. The only thing that has changed is a couple of lighting effects. So far, all of the 4K remasters have been the same thing, not actually 4K remasters, and are just separate stacks for the Xbox Series X and S consoles. There is nothing in the game that warrants the 4K remaster name, and therefore, EpiXR Games, and by extension, Tim, is lying to you and deceiving the Xbox players and his customers by providing something that is not what he claims it to be. Let's quickly move over to Mist Evolution, which is Tim's latest port of a Euphoria Games title, which was released on the 5th of December 2025. I'm recording this video on the 12th of January 2026, so a month and a week later. No one has unlocked any achievements for it, because every single one of those 10 achievements is unobtainable. Because all of these achievements are unobtainable, it's impossible to see how many players have purchased this game expecting a working product. Once again, if you have purchased this game, I highly recommend you refund it, as the game is, once again, a faulty product. Let's bring this video to a close and summarise what EpiXR Games apparently stands for. Not testing his games. Copy and pasting levels to make new games. Not fixing his games. Using AI art and music and voices. Literally cloning a game, putting a filter on it and calling it a new game, and blacklisting anybody who calls him out on it. Copying PopCap's Zoomer idea and changing the name to a different copyrighted title. Microsoft. Why is Tim still allowed to release games on your platform? Thanks for watching, everybody.